Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for coming out and listening to my talk. For some background, I had Marin Katusa asked me to come sit on panel, and about a week before Christmas found out it was going to be an actual presentation, so I had to do some work and figure out a topic that I thought I would discuss. I've seen a trend in the industry where back in the day when I was very, very active looking at junior mining companies, there was a brokerage community. You had the Rob Sallies, the Nash Jiwas, the Dean Dukes, all these big brokers that had special clients. There was always a nice full warrant financing, huge discount to share price. And I found that recently those financings are still available. So they're not, generally speaking, companies that I was interested in. And I noticed a trend where I'm going to call them industry groups, industry companies, or strategics were getting a lot more actively involved in taking positions in junior mining companies. So I looked at 4 selected groups of what I call strategics or industry groups. I looked at Gold Corp, Resource Capital Funds, Osisko Gold Royalties, and Orion Mine Finance. And in 2018, these 4 groups put $1.485 billion just into Canadian-listed junior mining companies. These are not ASX, AIM-listed. This is just these 4 groups, 2018 Canadian junior mining companies. So Gold Corp put $41.2 million into a list of some pretty interesting companies, some of them that I did own. You had Resource Capital Funds, who are a really great group out of Denver. They did $142.8 million. Again, Gold Corp is all equity. Resource Capital was mostly equity. Osisko Gold Royalties, $425 million. Again, now you're getting into royalty and equity, some streams, loans. And Orion Mine Finance, $876 million. Again, this is just in 2018. So that's a lot of money. Above and beyond this, you know, since I only have 20 minutes, I'll just touch on this very, very briefly. We've got the massive growth in ETFs. And, you know, if one puts money into an ETF, even a junior mining ETF like the BMO one, the ETFs don't do private placement. So money is not being forwarded down to the junior for exploration or mine development. Along with these strategics, it's just changing the game of financing at the junior level. So I decided to analyze this a little bit because I'm always trying to find an opportunity for a relatively inexpensive stock that I can own. So I looked strictly at the 2018 financings where these 4 groups took an initial position into the junior. So this is the amount of money that these groups put in where that was their initial position. So when Resource Capital, let's say, went to Libertygold, they had never been involved with Libertygold prior to 2018. So a lot of these were done, as you can see, the last 3, November, December, and December of 2018, this stock is still on 4-month hold, so it's not even free trading yet. So on the next slide, I decided, you know, how do you want to come in when a strategic has owned the stock, or do you want to be in there before the strategic or the industry players come in to take a position in the stock? So I decided I'd try to look at what's happened to the share price prior and post the industry or strategic getting involved. And of course, guys, this is to a certain extent market related as well. You know, share prices go up and down not because of a group getting involved. It's often where's gold at, where's copper at, so on and so forth. So I only looked at the ones that are free trading. So in 2018, Resource Capital, Gold Corp, Osisko did certain financings into the juniors, and post-financing, I took a December 31st share price only because I was in Mexico on a family vacation and had the time to actually put some of these tables together. The average loss is 37% post-financing. So the share prices of these companies have gone down post-financing. Then I wanted to see what these companies, where their last financing was prior to the strategic or the industry company getting in. So you can see here that if you're able to participate in the company prior to the industry like Gold Corp or Strategic getting involved, the upside is on the financing prior to their involvement. I've got Orezone here at minus 20%, third from the bottom. They had done a financing prior to that one about 6 weeks before at 50 cents, and if you'd got that one just 6 weeks before, that 82% would probably be well over 100%. So the idea is, if you're a speculator in junior mining stocks, is how do I get in before the industry major or the strategic partner comes in? So, like for most assessments, you want to see, does a company have a good project? Are good people involved? And you're looking for companies whose share prices are cheap, and I know I really like cheap. I don't like any stock where it's left a station. If it's moved up 15, 20%, I don't care if it goes up another 4 times. You've introduced downside to me, and I just don't like downside. So in September or so, I decided to start writing a blog, and I start to list the companies that I'm buying. I offer a subscription where I send my blog postings. I don't recommend stocks. I just simply list what I buy, and I give some reasoning as to why I've chosen to buy these companies. So these are the results as of January 11th. Some of them are up a little bit this week. Unfortunately, I had to prepare this presentation in advance and submit it to the conference to be here. So one of the companies I own is Orient. It's got the East Jabang production sharing contract in Sumatra, it's southern Sumatra. It's run by a Calgarian guy named Jeff Chisholm, who's got his office in Bangkok. By doing so, his G&A costs are a lot less than they are from having an office in Canada. The Angan 1X onshore well is probably the most anticipated onshore well that's going to be drilled in 2019. Partners are Repsol from Spain and Orient. When I took my position in the company, it had a $60 million market cap with $32 million in cash and a $28 million EV. Subsequently, at L53, they were lucky enough to have a little bit of a discovery in Thailand, which I'd not anticipated. But the real news is going to come towards the mid-March to end of May when they drill this well with Repsol in Sumatra. Now, it's rainy season in Sumatra. You're also going to have Ramadan play a role. So Jeff is saying mid-March. It's probably going to be mid-May. And I think it'll be very, very interesting. I think the share price will probably appreciate just even in anticipation of the results. So I like to buy my stuff cheap, and this is where I picked up Orient, circled in red here. I've taken a position in a micro cap company called Cipher Resources. And Cipher was brought to my attention by a gentleman named Jim Mustard. Jim Mustard was a mining analyst at Haywood and then an investment banker at PI Financial. And I was very fortunate to first meet Jim in Mongolia, where he took me around and showed me the country, and we're there to visit 2 uranium deposits back in the uranium heyday. So Cipher plans on being a new streaming/royalty company, $4.2 million market cap, $2.8 million in cash for an enterprise value of $1.4 million. And you've got shareholders that include Endeavour Mining Financial and Terra Capital, who combined own 30% of the stock. Regardless of what happens to this company, at an EV of 1.4 million, you're nearly at listing costs. You've got an Endeavour Terra shell at 1.4 million. As soon as they put their first streaming deal, Endeavour Financial has all kinds of deal flow, and Terra Capital, not as well known, but they're a big fund out of Australia that does a lot of stuff in the natural resource space. And you've had George Piper of Endeavour and Jeremy Bond of Terra actually actively join the board of directors. So we're just patiently waiting for this company to pull the trigger on its first streaming or royalty deal. It's a go big, go home story. If it doesn't work out, you own an Endeavour Terra shell at 1.4 million. And this is where I took my position in Cipher Resources. Again, I initially took around 8-9 cents and is averaged down. GOLDPLAY Exploration is a company run by Marcio Fonseca, who used to be an investment banker with Macquarie, mining engineer. He's recently involved in selling SilverQuest to First Majestic. Former director is Laura Diaz, now the Director General of Mines in Mexico. Mexico is a country that has shifted a little bit left. I sometimes worry about potential changes in environmental laws, and so on and so forth, but it's a well-established mining country. They've got a historical resource of 30 million ounces of silver equivalent. I would imagine in the coming weeks they're going to update that to 45 million ounces of silver equivalent in a pit-constrained resource so that desktop studies can move forward. Why I like Marcio quite a bit is that Marcio is somewhat independently wealthy and is only interested in companies and projects that he can sell. He's not doing this for a salary. It's a great area in the Rosario mining district with First Majestic, Marlin, and Peñoles. SSR Mining and Sandstorm are shareholders. When I got involved, it's moved up a little bit, but I got involved. It had an $8 million market cap, $2 million in cash for $6 million EV, and I just think a great punt when I got involved at 20 cents. So this is where I got involved in the stock. It's around 25.5 now, but still a lot of upside in GOLDPLAY Exploration. Libertygold is a company that's got 3 of what I believe are change of control projects in the Great Basin of America's Great Basin. It's an oxygen capital company, Mark O'Day and Don McInnes, who've done with Plutonic and Kushko, and Mark O'Day, who is Frontier, who got bought out by Newmont, and actually prior to Frontier, he bought out a company that I was a founding shareholder of called AUX Ventures at the Long Canyon deposit in Newmont. So it's a story that I followed quite actively. And Goldstrike is moving forward. These are 3 past producers, oxide gold systems, very cheap to heap leach. It's a bigger company, $66 million market cap with 14 million cash and 52 million EV. Strong shareholders, Van Eck, Resource Capital, and Newmont. It's going to take a little while to develop the story, but I think there's going to be all kinds of news through 2019, and eventually some of these projects will be either bought or the company will be bought as they de-risk them and move them forward across the chain. They've also got projects in Turkey that could offer some short-term capital. I'm quite confident the company's trying to move off TV Tower and Hydalgo, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, to raise capital. Again, just trying to show where and why I buy companies. I really like cheap, and I think when you're buying at 32 cents and groups like Resource Capital have come in at 40 and some groups higher, it offers a great opportunity to take a position. Osino Resources, not as well known in North America. Hayedon is the CEO of this company, along with Alan Friedman. They've done a lot of work in Namibia, based in South Africa. Their last success was selling Oryx to B2Gold for $180 million. So they're back at it again. Over the last 10 years or so, they've been involved in selling their last 4 companies for $1.8 billion. And they've got a very, very strong land position in Namibia. This Caribib gold trend is 25 kilometers long. In my estimation, once it's fully drilled out, will probably be 3 to 5 million ounces of gold. And I think Hai and Alan will have another change of control company. $14 million market cap with $5 million in cash, so a $9 million EV. When I got involved, the founders owned 14%, Ross Beatty 20%, Resource Capital 8%, Pat DeCapo 8%, and Anish Synergy and the guys at Trimark 7%. So it's a tightly held company with some of our industry's biggest players at a microcap valuation. And this is where I picked up my shares in Osino. It was very, very hard to do. It doesn't trade much stock, so I had to work very hard to get my position in this company because it doesn't trade much. Victory Metals is a company introduced to me by Marin Katusa, as you guys probably know, was involved in running this conference. So for some history on me, back in the day, I used to pick stocks for the KC Research Group, and Marin came in and took over the KC Energy Speculator that Dave Forrest and I were involved in running, and Dave would write. I would often pick some of the stocks, and when Marin shows me something, you've got to look. So he said, you've got to check out this vanadium play in Nevada. Unbeknownst to me, the CEO is Colin Cattell, who I first met when he was 14 years old at his dad's house in Burtonsville, Maryland, when his dad was running a company called Concentric Energy that I helped raise $7 million for from Passport Capital in San Fran. And Paul Matizik, who sold his last 5 companies for $2.6 billion. So it's a who's who. It's currently trading under a ticker called Ripper Oil and Gas. It's a shell. And they expect to be trading end of January, sometime in February. And they've got a nice, it's a relatively low-grade vanadium project, but low CapEx, no roaster needed. Interstate 80 cuts right through the middle of the project. They got a rail line on the northern end of the project. The 522 megawatt North Valmy Station, 9 miles away, and no loose stock, no warrants, no options. This thing was, I was able to participate in the placement at 35 cents, and it's probably going to open up significantly higher than that. So I don't have a chart for that one because it's a halted shell at this point in time. Aston Bay. So this is a geological story. We've got Tom Ulrich, who is the former chief geologist in North America for Antofagasta. And Aston Bay had projects up in Nunavut, so it's seasonal exploration. Phenomenal potential in Nunavut, but I'm not very interested in putting my family's capital into something that can be worked on 2 months a year. The story takes too long to develop. Great team. They announced, I met with them in Hong Kong back in October, really liked the story and really liked what they were doing with their new project in Virginia. So beyond Tom running the company, you have David Broughton, who's well known through his days within the Ivanhoe Group. He's won the Colin Spence and the Thayer Lindsay. And Don Taylor, who just recently sold his Arizona mining and the formerly known as the Hermosa project, now the Taylor project, to South 32 for $1.6 billion. He's been involved in putting this new Virginia project into the company. So he's also a winner of a Thayer Lindsay. So you've got 3 great geologists. The share price is a little bit higher than I wanted to pay. They came out with what I thought were nice results in Nunavut. They're what we call great exploration results, maybe not great market results. Share price came off, and I was able to get in at a $7.5 million market cap with $1.5 million in cash. It started to trade really hard post tax loss selling in January, and I thought I better take a position before it bumps up. And I was able to get in an average price of 6 cents. With these guys, and once they start going, they've got a little bit of cash. They don't have to kill themselves at this market cap. I think it's a nice pickup. And this is where I got my Aston Bay. I can't tell you enough, I like cheap. And my most recent buy is a company called Africa Oil. If you read my blog, this is what I call the one that got away, because I first got involved. Marin put me in this thing back in 2010 and hung on to it for about 18 months and sold off my position for a modest gain. And 2 days later, it went from $1 something to $11. And if I just waited another week, it would have been a big gain. But I'm back into Africa Oil. Subsequent to that time, they picked up 2 working interests offshore Nigeria that provide a lot of cash. They have their South Locature development project with partners Tula Oil and Maersk that they're developing. And they've taken because of their cash position, a portfolio approach to taking positions into other equity positions to other companies in Africa that have a lot of offshore potential. They have one offshore South Africa that just spudded December 27th. And whereas you've got with Orient, the first company I showed you, probably the most anticipated onshore well in 2019, this one offshore South Africa is probably the most anticipated offshore well in 2019. So show you a graph here. This is where I picked up my Africa oil. Oh, sorry, I'm 40 seconds over, so I'll say thank you. Please go to www.mp1capital and have a look at my website, and I will be around if anybody ever wants to ask questions. Look forward to meeting you. Cheers. Thank you.